One of the most central ideas that emerges from the laws pertaining to the 7-year sabbatical cycle, the Shemitah year, culminating in the Jubilee year, the Yovel, is given expression in Parshat Behar. We read in Leviticus 25, verse 23, "The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land belongs to me, for you are strangers and temporary residents with me. Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi." The refrain from cultivating the land during the Shemitah year and the release of ownership that occurs during the Yovel year serve to remind us that we are sojourners in God's land. This very concept was already articulated by Abraham, Judaism's founding father. Even as Abraham purchased a permanent resting place for Sarah Imenu, Abraham recognizes that he is merely a resident alien on God's promised land. In Genesis 23, verse 4, Abraham proclaims, "Ger v'toshav anochi imachem, tnu li achuzat kever imachem ve'ekbera metim milfanai." I am a stranger and an inhabitant with you. Give me burial property with you, so that I may bury my dead from before me. Many Jewish commentators and thinkers have argued that being a ger, a sojourner, is central to Jewish identity. Let me share some sources that frame 3 possible outlooks and dispositions inherent to this idea. According to Sivan Rav Meir, a well-known Israeli journalist and contemporary Torah commentator, being gerim informs our relationship to the land. We are not masters of the land with inalienable rights to it. Rather, our ownership of the land is conditioned upon moral behavior and adherence to God's law. Sivan Rav Meir writes, "Many commentators have explained that the rules of the game are completely different in the land of Israel. It belongs to us precisely in accordance with our behavior. Just as a safe has an entry code, so does the land of Israel. If we want to access that code, we are expected to live up to certain standards of behavior. Of course, it goes without saying that this is where the Jewish people belong, and we must speak up and fight against those who wish to erase our rights to the land. But the land is not automatically ours. We need to show some humility, hoping that our conduct makes us worth of having it." Rav Meir concludes by writing, "It might be a better idea to speak not of our rights to the land, but of our obligations to it." Unlike Sivan Rav Meir, who is living in Israel and is immersed in a dominant Jewish society within a sovereign Jewish state, Rav Soloveitchik's concerns are cultural and philosophical. For Rav Soloveitchik, gerim is a disposition, a stance we must insist upon in our encounter with modernity and or clash with the majority culture. Writing on this topic, Rav Soloveitchik claims, quote, "Abraham's definition of his dual status, we believe, describes with profound accuracy the historical position of the Jew who resides in a predominantly non-Jewish society. He was a resident, like other inhabitants of Canaan, sharing with them a concern for the welfare of society, digging wells, and contributing to the progress of the country in loyalty to its government and institutions. Here, Abraham was clearly a fellow citizen, a patriot among compatriots, joining others in advancing the common welfare. However, there was another aspect, the spiritual, in which Abraham regarded himself as a stranger. His identification and solidarity with his fellow citizens in the secular realm did not imply his readiness to relinquish any aspects of his religious uniqueness. His was a different faith, and he was governed by perceptions, truths, and observances which set him apart from the larger faith community. In this regard, Abraham and his descendants would always remain strangers." Midrash Lekach Tov completely spiritualizes the concept of space. We are not simply gerim in the land, but rather we are mortal sojourners in this world. We read in Midrash Lekach Tov, just as a sojourner anticipates leaving a place on any day, so too the righteous contemplate the day of death daily. They are like sojourners in the land, but the wicked don't pay heed to the day of death. As it is written, for there are no fetters, chartzuvot, to their death. The Midrash explains there are no fetters. Chartzuvot is a compound of two words. This means that they don't dread charedim, nor do they agonize atzevin over the day of death. These sources demonstrate that cultivating a sense of ourselves as gerim can inform our political and moral actions, guide our encounters with competing cultures and philosophies, as well as deepen our appreciation for the fragility of life. Though the past 14 months have been challenging and unsettling for so many of us in a variety of ways, it is worth noting that there are certainly important lessons and insights that we all learned through the experience of feeling unsettled. As we begin the process of settling anew into a new normal, may the moral humility, the cultural fortitude, and spiritual insight gained during our own unsettling of the past year remain with us as well.